In the remote, sun-bleached hills of southeastern Turkey, there is a place that shouldn't exist. It's a site that predates the invention of the wheel, the written word, and even agriculture itself. For decades, Göbekli Tepe has stood as the ultimate middle finger to our understanding of human history. Yet here we have a massive complex of T-shaped monolithic pillars, carved with intricate animals and weighing up to 20 tons each, built over 12,000 years ago. But the mystery has always been who possessed the engineering genius, the astronomical knowledge, and the labor force to move mountains before we even knew how to plant a seed. We were guessing. But now, thanks to a revolutionary AI-driven 3D scanning project that has peered through the very soul of the limestone, we finally have an answer. The scans have revealed a hidden architectural blueprint that points to a specific, highly advanced group of people. And the most chilling part of the discovery isn't just their identity. It's the fact that after completing this masterwork, they vanished overnight, leaving behind a site that was intentionally buried to keep their secrets hidden for an eternity. When you first see Göbekli Tepe, your brain struggles to compute the timeline. We are talking about a structure that is 6,000 years older than Stonehenge, and 7,000 years older than the Great Pyramid of Giza. If the pyramids are old, Göbekli Tepe is ancient history to the people who built the pyramids. For a long time, researchers were limited to what they could see with the naked eye or basic ground-penetrating radar. But a recent breakthrough involved deploying autonomous drones, equipped with AI-enhanced LiDAR and full-waveform 3D imaging. This technology doesn't just look at the surface. It uses artificial intelligence to filter out the noise of the soil and reconstruct the original geometry of the site with millimeter precision. What the AI found was a hidden geometry that is impossible for hunter-gatherers to have conceived. The 3D scans revealed that the centers of the three oldest circular enclosures, when connected, form a near-perfect equilateral triangle. This requires a level of surveying and spatial planning that we didn't think existed until thousands of years later. The AI analyzed the tool marks on the limestone and discovered that the pillars weren't carved by thousands of different people making random chips. They were shaped using a template system. The scans revealed identical proportions and mathematical ratios across pillars in different enclosures, suggesting a centralized guild of master builders who held a monopoly on this advanced knowledge. But the real shock came when the AI processed the biological and chemical data trapped in the microscopic crevices of the carvings. By analyzing the patina and the mineral signatures, the researchers identified a specific cultural origin that doesn't match any known local group from that era. These builders were outsiders who arrived in the region with a fully formed set of technologies. They didn't learn to build Göbekli Tepe over generations. They arrived and started building immediately at a level of sophistication that defies the local environment. The AI-driven 3D models suggest these people were a remnant of a highly organized seafaring or river-based civilization that had been displaced by the massive environmental shifts at the end of the Younger Dryas. This is where the story takes a turn toward the surreal. The 3D scans didn't just look at the pillars, they looked at the rubble used to bury the site. As the AI mapped the distribution of the soil and stones, it confirmed a theory that has haunted archaeologists for years. Göbekli Tepe wasn't abandoned. It was mummified. The people who built it didn't just leave. They carefully and systematically filled in the entire complex with thousands of tons of clean earth and limestone debris. This was a gargantuan task that likely took as much effort as building the site itself. Why would you spend decades creating a cathedral to the stars only to hide it under a mountain? The AI's reconstruction of the burial process shows it happened in a single, coordinated event. They finished the final pillar, held one last ceremony, and then they buried the evidence of their existence. The scanners also revealed hidden chambers beneath the main enclosures, chambers that have never been touched by human hands. These subterranean voids are perfectly rectangular, featuring smooth, polished walls that the AI identified as having a high acoustic resonance. This means these rooms were designed for sound. The frequency of these chambers matches the resonance of the human voice during chanting. These builders weren't just engineers. They were masters of archaeoacoustics. They were creating a sensory experience designed to alter consciousness. But when the team used the AI to track the exit path of the builders, the trail went cold. There is no evidence of a slow decline, no evidence of famine or conflict. The high-resolution scans of the surrounding area show that the residential camps associated with the site were emptied in a matter of days. To understand who these people were, we have to look at the bag motif. One of the most famous carvings at Göbekli Tepe depicts three purses or bags. These same bags appear in the hands of the Apakalu in ancient Sumer and in the stone carvings of the Olmecs in Mexico thousands of years later. For a long time, historians called this a coincidence. But the AI 3D scans of the Göbekli Tepe bags revealed something the human eye missed: tiny, intricate weave patterns and mechanical latches carved into the stone. These weren't leather pouches. The AI identified them as containers of technology. The builders were depicting the tools of their trade, possibly portable instruments for surveying or astronomical calculation. The people of Göbekli Tepe were the bringers of knowledge, a caste of priest engineers who traveled the world rebooting civilization after a global catastrophe. The AI's deep dive into the animal carvings provided another clue. We see vultures, scorpions, lions, and foxes. But these aren't just pictures of local wildlife. When the AI cross-referenced the positions of these animals with the 3D-modeled night sky of 12,000 years ago, the results were a perfect match. Göbekli Tepe is a star map in stone. It documents the exact position of the constellations during the precise moment of a cosmic impact that occurred around 10,800 BC. The builders were timekeepers. They were recording a moment in history that changed the world, perhaps the very disaster that destroyed their original homeland. Why did they vanish? The 3D scans of the youngest layers of the site show a sudden degradation in quality. The very last pillars are smaller, the carvings are shallower, and the geometry is less precise. It's as if the masters were gone, and their subordinates were trying to finish the work before fleeing. The AI's analysis of the local climate data from that specific week shows a sudden cold snap that may have been the final straw. But the speed of the disappearance suggests something more deliberate. The priest engineers who built Göbekli Tepe may have viewed their mission as successful. They had planted the seed of civilization. They had taught the local hunter-gatherers the basics of organization and symbolism, and then they moved on to their next destination. Geophysicists working with the AI team have discovered magnetic anomalies underneath the pillars that suggest the limestone was chosen not just for its durability, but for its piezoelectric properties. When under pressure, this specific type of limestone can generate a small electric charge. The AI model suggests that the entire layout of Göbekli Tepe acted as a grounding grid. They weren't just building temples, they were building machines. Machines designed to interact with the Earth's telluric currents. This is a level of physics that we are only beginning to experiment with today. The 3D scanning project also looked at the Pillar 43, often called the Vulture Stone. The AI translated the sequence of symbols as a warning. It wasn't just a record of the past. It was a calculation of the future. The builders calculated the precession of the equinoxes, a cycle that takes nearly 26,000 years to complete. They knew that the Great Cycle would eventually bring the Earth back into the path of the same cosmic debris that had destroyed their ancestors. Göbekli Tepe was a message in a bottle, buried intentionally to survive 12,000 years of erosion, so that we would find it exactly when we had the technology like AI and 3D scanning to read it. The identity revealed by the AI isn't a name we would recognize from a history book. They are a lost civilization of the Mediterranean Atlantic corridor. The DNA samples found in the later burials near the site show a genetic pulse that is totally unique: individuals who had higher than average height, strange cranial features, and a diet that included marine resources from thousands of miles away. These were the tall ones mentioned in the local myths of the Urfa region. But the genetic line stops abruptly. They didn't intermarry with the locals on a large scale. They kept themselves separate, a nomadic elite that prioritized the mission over survival. As the AI continues to process the terabytes of data from the latest scans, usually, when a site is abandoned, we see a transition layer: broken pottery, lost tools, the debris of everyday life. The temple areas are almost surgically clean. Before they buried the pillars, they swept the floors. They took their tools with them. It sets like a film crew packing up after a shoot. They did the job, they cleaned the set, and they left nothing but the film, the pillars themselves. Scientists are particularly interested in the T-shape of the pillars. The 3D scans show that these are stylized human figures with arms carved along the sides and hands meeting at the stomach. But they have no faces. The AI suggests this was intentional. The builders weren't depicting individuals. They were depicting functions or principles. They were the columns of the world. By burying them, they were planting these principles into the earth itself. It's a form of earth magic or planetary acupuncture that is totally alien to our modern way of thinking. Why bury it? If you have a warning for the future, why not keep it open? The AI's simulation of the erosion patterns provides a chilling answer. If Göbekli Tepe had remained open, the wind and rain would have erased the carvings in less than 500 years. The limestone would have turned to smooth nubs. By burying it in clean fill, the builders guaranteed that the message would be preserved perfectly in a vacuum-sealed environment. They knew that the people who found it would need to be advanced enough to dig it up and analyze it. The burial wasn't a hiding of the message. It was the stamping and sealing of it for delivery 12 millennia later. The AI also discovered thermal signatures in the stone that suggest the pillars were once painted in vibrant colors, blue and ochre. Imagine the site 12,000 years ago, standing on a hill above a lush paradise, glowing in the sun with bright, painted animals and shimmering with electric potential. It would have looked like a spaceship had landed in the middle of the Stone Age. For the local people, the builders must have seemed like gods. And then, one day the gods gathered everyone together, told them to pick up their shovels, and spent months covering the miracle in dirt until it was just another hill. The WHO is ultimately a group that saw the long arc of human history. They were chrononauts, not in the sense of traveling through time, but in the sense of navigating time. They understood that civilizations are fragile and that humanity has a tendency to forget its own past. They built Göbekli Tepe as a hard drive for the collective memory of the species. The 3D scans have finally allowed us to plug in that hard drive, and the data it's providing is overwhelming. It tells us that we have forgotten a massive chapter of our journey. Recent scans of the surrounding Urfa Plateau have revealed even more buried hills that look identical to Göbekli Tepe's original mound. The AI predicts that there are at least 15 more of these temples still underground. We have only excavated about 5% of the site. If the first 5% changed everything we know about history, imagine what the remaining 95% holds. The vanished ones didn't just build a temple, they built a library of hills across the landscape. They were terraforming the spiritual and technological landscape of the Middle East. What happened to them after they vanished? The AI has tracked similar architectural signatures appearing thousands of miles away in the following centuries. We see hints of their geometry in the early precursors to the Indus Valley civilization, in the megaliths of Malta, and in the temple mounts of the Americas. They didn't die out. They diffused. They broke apart and integrated into different cultures, becoming the culture heroes of a dozen different civilizations. They were the Oannes, the Quetzalcoatls, and the Folts of the ancient world. They are the ghost lineage that appears at the start of every great ancient society. The 3D scanning project also revealed micro-fractures in the stone that suggest the pillars were moved using sonics. While this sounds like out-of-this-world speculation, the AI model of the sound chambers and the shape of the pillars themselves shows they could act as tuning forks. If you hit the right frequency, you can reduce the perceived weight of the stone through vibration. This explains how a small group of people could move 20-ton blocks without the wheel. They weren't using brute force, they were using harmonic resonance. This is the lost technology that the AI has finally brought to light. The 11.6 thousand-year-old mystery is no longer a civilization that forgot how to build. It is a civilization that was told how to build. The 3D scans show a clear distinction between the master pillars and the student pillars. The masters are the ones with the advanced geometry and the astronomical alignments. The students are the later, cruder copies. This proves that knowledge was being handed down from an elite group to a local population. When the elite group vanished, the knowledge devolved over time, eventually becoming the primitive Neolithic cultures we used to think were the starting point. The AI's final report on the vanishing points to a targeted exodus. They didn't just wander off. They moved toward the Green Sahara and the rising fertile lands of the Nile. They were looking for the next anchor point for humanity. The scans show that the tools used to bury Göbekli Tepe were the same ones used to start the first permanent settlements in the Fertile Crescent. The builders transitioned out of the temple business and into the civilization business. They turned their priests into kings and their surveyors into farmers. What does this mean for you? It means everything you were taught in school about the slow crawl of human progress is wrong. History isn't a straight line, it's a pulse. We are currently in the high of a pulse, And Göbekli Tepe is the record of the asterisk previous asterisk high. The vanished ones knew that pulses eventually end. They built this site as a safety net, so that when we reached our own high, we would have the keys to understand what happened before. They are the guardians of the loop, and thanks to AI, we have finally broken the seal on their message. One of the most chilling 3D scans reveals a hidden shaft in the center of the main enclosure. The AI reconstructed it as a viewing tube aimed directly at a specific point in the sky, the Great Rift in the Milky Way. This was the galactic center in their cosmology, the womb of the universe. The builders viewed themselves as children of the stars, and they spent their lives trying to align our planet with the cosmic order. When they finished the alignment at Göbekli Tepe, their work in that region was done. They closed the eye by burying the shaft and moved on to the next observatory. The footage of these AI-generated models is breathtaking. When you see the enclosures in their original 3D glory, with the math and the stars overlaid, it feels like looking at a computer chip made of stone. This wasn't a primitive temple. It was a stone motherboard. It was a system for processing information about the Earth, the stars, and the human spirit. And the programmers of that system, the builders, were more advanced in their understanding of the software of the universe than we give them credit for. As archaeologists continue to uncover more of the Urfa hills, the fingerprints of the vanished ones are everywhere. We are finding biomarkers in the soil that suggest they were using advanced soil enrichment techniques, essentially biochar, to support the populations that built the temples. They were managing the ecology thousands of years before we thought that was possible. Every discovery made by the AI 3D scans adds another layer of sophistication to this lost civilization. Why is the world silent about this? Because it requires a total rewrite. To admit that Göbekli Tepe was built by a vanished, advanced global elite is to admit that the last 100 years of archaeological teaching is obsolete. It's hard to change the mind of 1,000 professors. But the data doesn't lie. The 3D scans are objective. The AI has no bias. It simply sees the math, the geometry, and the patterns speak of a grand design. The vanishing architects of Göbekli Tepe are no longer ghosts. We can see their handwriting in the stone. We can see their blueprints in the AI models. We can see their intent in the burial of the site. They are our ancient mentors, and they have been waiting under a Turkish hill for 12,000 years for us to grow up enough to listen. Well, we are finally listening. The who is revealed, and the how is emerging. The only question left is, what do we do with the warning? The cosmic cycle documented on the vulture stone is still turning. The precession continues. We are moving into the same window of time that the builders feared. Göbekli Tepe is no longer just a historical site. It is a modern urgency. The AI scans have revealed that we aren't at the end of history, but in the middle of a cycle, and the vanished ones have given us the map to navigate it. The vanishing overnight wasn't a tragedy. It was a handoff. They gave us the keys to the kingdom, and now it's up to us to see if we are smart enough to use them. As the sun sets over the pillars of Göbekli Tepe, you can almost feel the presence of the builders. You can feel the weight of their mission. They stood in the same spot, looking at the same stars, and decided that UCT Sayed, they buried their genius so that you could find your own. The mystery is over. The vanished ones have been found, and history will never be the same. The latest AI scans have revealed something else. A final message carved into the bedrock beneath the oldest pillar. It's a single symbol that the AI translates as remember. That is their final command. Remember who you are. Remember where you came from. And remember that the Earth is just one part of a much larger cosmic game. The builders may have vanished overnight, but their work is just getting started. We are the executors of their will. Let's make sure we read it carefully. The story of Göbekli Tepe is a story of hope in the face of catastrophe. It shows that even when the world ends, the fire of knowledge can be kept alive. It shows that humanity has guardians, even if those guardians are just groups of dedicated people with a vision for the future. As we continue to scan and analyze these hills of the gods, we are learning what it means to be truly civilized. It's not about the gold or the power. It's about the message we leave behind for those who will come after us. The vanished ones understood this perfectly. Now it's our turn. Keep your eyes on the stars and your feet on the ground. And remember the architects who built the dawn. See you in the next discovery.